Hi, I'm Nick Palmisciano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. The Democratic debates moved to South Carolina this week. With so much at stake coming up for Super Tuesday, let's see how they went.
Bernie, I was talking about
The Democratic debates were insane. They literally just spent 2 hours yelling over each other. I loved it. It was great television. Look, guys, politics is a lot more fun once you realize that none of these people are ever going to solve anything. Then it's just about who's funnier. So let's go through this. From best to worst performance. Biden, number one this week. He had some cringy moments, but he came out firing. He even beat up Tom Steyer for some reason. Tom moved or something, and he was like, hey, remember when you bought that private prison, you piece of crap? I think he did enough to show his chops and to stay relevant. I think he wins South Carolina tomorrow, and boom, just like that, he starts getting talked about as the front runner again. If he doesn't win South Carolina for some reason, which I really doubt, I think that he's in real trouble. Buttigieg, number two. The guy was impressive on stage, great answers, always has a way of attacking people while being nice about it. You know, yeah, Janet, you tried your hardest. You know, but everybody knows Janet didn't. Number three, Warren. She had a good week, but I think she purposefully signaled this week that she wants to be Bernie's vice president. Bernie's the front runner. He's the guy that should be getting attacked. He's the one that she should be differentiating herself from, but instead she left him almost completely alone and went hard in the paint after Bloomberg, the guy that's numbers in the polls are rising and is essentially the anti-Bernie. She was relentless with Bloomberg and didn't allow him to gain any steam. Number four, Bloomberg. He did a lot better than last week. He had some good points, but overall his whole shtick of enough is never going to be enough with Elizabeth Warren was a little weird. No one's ever gonna feel bad for the mega billionaire. So you can't really play the victim because you're being accused of essentially making a bunch of inappropriate jokes to women and having NDAs protecting yourself. Also, Bloomberg's Durham office is literally right next door to us. So we're gonna try all week next week to get some interviews. If they don't wanna talk to us, we will just report from right outside their office while trying to point the camera in to the volunteers. I know they're just volunteers and they're helping out, but we're still gonna do it. Number five, Klobuchar. I actually thought she did great, had awesome answers. I just don't think she does enough to break through the noise. It starts to feel like you should feel bad for me because other people are not treating me well, so vote for me, and nobody really wants that. It's Biden VP or nothing for her, in my opinion, unless she decides to save the Prime Minister of Malaysia from the deep, dark modeling underbelly. Tom Steyer got his ass kicked. There were just so many bad moments. I said before, even Biden beat him up about literally knowing private prisons were super racist, and then he bought one, and his comeback was like, but I sold it for a profit. It was dude, there was really nothing about his performance that was good. There was even a moment where he hadn't been able to talk for an hour, and he lost his shit and was like, let me talk, let me talk, let me talk. And then finally the moderators were like, all right, we'll let you talk. And he was like, we need to come together. Dude, in a battle of billionaires, you're the crappiest billionaire.
And now, on to coronavirus news. 38% of all Americans will not buy Corona beer due to fear of getting the coronavirus. I don't even know what to say right now. We made a joke about this 2 weeks ago, but it was a joke. The coronavirus has nothing to do with the beer. And I repeat, the coronavirus has nothing to do with the beer. There, I said it. This just in, all the news agencies, including CNN, have reported that this is a false report, which we then reported. So by the transitive property of trolling, we just got trolled. Pretty funny. But you know what isn't funny? The virus. The virus is serious. It's now cropped up over a quarter of the world. There have been 84,000 confirmed cases and over 2,800 confirmed deaths. That's more than a 3% death rate. It's critical to note, however, that in first world countries that death rate is a lot lower, ranging from 0.5 to 1%. Nevertheless, this thing is spreading exponentially, and it's a good bet that it'll hit America in force soon. The disease can lay dormant for up to 3 weeks, but is still transmittable during that time. This allows, obviously, for very quick spreading of the disease. For example, cases in Italy jumped up 30% in the matter of a single day. So should you be worried? Yes and no. Many have said that the flu is more dangerous. That's not really true, as the flu by ratio has a lower death percentage. But it still leaves the same groups of high-risk people in danger. Those are the elderly, the extremely young, and those with compromised autoimmune systems. What can you do? Well, really nothing. But don't travel to China, cough into your arm and not the open air or your friends' faces. Wash your hands regularly with water and soap. If you have questionable symptoms, get checked right away. Scientists in Massachusetts have said that they came up with a vaccine that should be available within the next year. Then it's up to you whether or not you want to believe doctors or Karen down the street, who's going to tell you to ex-nay the vaccines, just to stave off autism before we fall off the edge of the flat earth that we live on. The stock market has had its biggest plunge since 2008 due to the virus, which I guess is upsetting, but not as upsetting as death. So, I really don't know why we talk about these things with like the stock market when, humans are dying.
Speaking of flat earthers, daredevil and flat earther Mike Hughes flew his last rocket this week. Hughes was on an apparent cosmic quest to find the final frontier. He hoped to be launched 5,000 feet in the air with the eventual goal of breaking the continuum between the Earth and space. Upon launch, a parachute capsule was ripped open, and despite the fact that he had multiple backup parachutes, none of them were pulled, and he crashed back into the Earth. It's a sad day for flat earthers. Hughes once famously said, "I don't believe in science. There's no difference between science and science fiction." Gravity had a different opinion. We here at BNN know that Hughes will be mourned all around the globe.
A New Hampshire police chief was let go amidst budget cuts at a board meeting this week. 20-year law enforcement veteran Richard Lee started with the standard badge and gun routine when asked to turn it over. After those items, he handed over the keys to his cruiser to the board, followed by his gun belt, followed by his turtleneck, then followed by his pants. After surrendering nearly every public article of clothing on his body, he put his boots back on, walked right out the door into 26-degree weather, and started walking on down the road. When later interviewed as to why he stripped down in front of the board, Lee just replied, "This is what they demanded, so this is what I'm doing." Although the board did say it was slightly unnecessary. In a silver lining to this story, the local strip club did hear about Richard Lee's actions and offered him a job on the spot. Given that Richard was out of a job and needed new employment, it's rumored that his new stage name is going to be Deputy Dickley, and he's starting this week.
Ex-Democratic Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and forced to repay $670,000 because she's a total piece of crap. She also had to return a bunch of money to the tune of $400,000. If you don't remember her story, she basically sold a bunch of children's books to the government, but didn't actually deliver the books and kept the money. That's bad enough, but it doesn't end there. She then took the books that she sold to the government and resold them to other people and kept that money too. Then she took those funds and filtered them into her own political campaigns. Then she stole the money from her own political campaigns and refurbished her house. But she's rich and she's very, very sorry, so she's only getting 3 years.
A federal appeals court ruled this week that the Trump administration will be totally justified in withholding state funding from immigration sanctuary states. The states of New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Washington, and Massachusetts, and Virginia have all declared themselves sanctuary states for illegal immigrants. They also rejected having their law enforcement ask whether a detainee was a legal citizen or an illegal immigrant. Their law enforcement also wouldn't tell ICE if a detainee was in fact an illegal immigrant before they were released. This has been considered hindering federal law enforcement. So the appeals court has now ruled that states must comply with federal law enforcement priorities.
A man was arrested this week after trying to buy Girl Scout cookies with counterfeit money. 13-year-old Ava Brown told police that she knew the bill was fake but accepted it anyway because the man had a large knife on his belt and she was scared. She then tapped into the international Girl Scouts community to track that man down and have him arrested. Camden Descharmes was arrested and charged with forgery and 2 counts of third-degree theft. Hopefully he learned the valuable lesson that you can't screw the dealer. One anonymous Girl Scout had this to say: if he tries to pull that crap again, he'll be waking up in a lead diaper. Now I don't know what that means, but it sounds terrifying. Don't f with the Girl Scouts. And finally, in Florida Man news, there are 2 stories. So Matt's taking the first one.
And finally, in Florida news, John King of Smyrna, Florida was asking for his clothes from the local Advent hospital. Totally harmless. But feeling that his request was being ignored, John set out to make himself stand out a little more by setting his hospital bed on fire. John's roommate in the bed next to him said that he saw John making a small, tindery fire by himself, walked over and convinced him to put him out. Upon walking back to his own bed, John's roommate saw that he rekindled the fire and set the $4,000 bed entirely ablaze. Staff rushed in to put out the blaze with fire extinguishers while others called 911. When police arrived, John King was arrested for felony arson. It's said that the crime will not be taken lightly and that prosecutors will be bringing the heat. As King acted on his own accord, no hospital staff will be fired.
In second and final Florida Man news, Sarah Boone got herself in a sticky situation. The Winter Park, Florida woman is being charged with second-degree murder after she played hide-and-seek with her boyfriend, zipping him into a suitcase and then leaving him there to die. Sarah told the police that the 2 of them were playing hide-and-seek and that the whole thing was an accident, but the weird cell phone video she took of him dying and screaming for help had other things to say. Namely, that he was dying and screaming for help. The video includes Boone laughing and saying, "F you for all the things you've done to me. F you, stupid." Her boyfriend continued to scream out and say that he couldn't breathe, and she replied, "Oh, that's on you. That's what it feels like when you choke me." When arrested, Boone allegedly said that they were drinking and playing hide and seek and that they thought it would be funny to get inside suitcases. She then said she got drunk and passed out on the bed while he was trapped in the suitcase. An autopsy will be performed to see what the actual cause of death was, but authorities believe that this is a pretty open and shut case. In other news, next week we'll be testing our ability to break out of suitcases. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Max
Palmisano.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited about Mike Bloomberg setting up shop right next door to Ranger Up. Yeehaw! Also, don't forget, you can use code BNN at rangerup.com for 25% off. Have a good weekend.